All right, welcome to your deep dive. You ready for this one? This is going to be a wild one. Today we're going deep into Diddy. You know, Sean Combs, Pope Daddy, P. Diddy, just Diddy, love. He's had a lot of names.
It's interesting, right? Because our source material today isn't like a boring news article. Mm-hmm. We're actually going into a YouTube video.
Well, yeah.
By a commentator called Ticket.
Mm-hmm.
He's known for, let's just say, a very energetic style.
Yeah, and the language.
Yeah, little colorful sometimes.
Oh, colorful.
But he usually does back up what he's saying with real sources.
Right. It's kind of like that internet hype man.
Yeah.
But for conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
This time, though, it's about Diddy and his legal battles, which are pretty serious.
Right.
Ticket says there's this new witness that has come forward and says they have like incriminating videotapes of Diddy.
It's a big deal, right? Because Diddy's already facing some heavy charges.
Yeah.
I mean, sex trafficking, racketeering. This is not like a speeding ticket or anything.
It's serious stuff.
This is serious. And he has pled not guilty.
Okay.
But this new stuff, this could make things even more complicated for him.
Okay, let's back up a little bit for our listeners, just to like give a little background on the existing legal troubles before we jump into the tape.
Well, as you said, the charges against him are really serious.
Yeah.
And things were already kind of crazy with the controversy surrounding the Kim Porter memoir.
Yeah.
You know, Diddy's late ex-girlfriend.
Oh, yeah.
Remember all that?
There was all those questions about, was the published version the real one?
Right. And this is where it gets interesting, because a guy named Courtney Burgess came out and said he had the unedited real version.
Okay. And this is the same guy that is coming out with this new information.
This is the same guy. And he was an associate of Diddy's. Said he was there for all the parties, was like an insider.
Yeah.
Talking wild parties, illegal activities going on, underage people.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
Underage individuals, like, that's a little concerning.
Yeah. Pretty heavy stuff. And so Ticket is reporting that Burgess is saying he has multiple thumb drives.
Oh, wow.
Full of footage from these parties. And that the contents are like really shocking, like talking underage people, including some pretty big names.
No.
Justin Bieber, Usher, Jaden Smith, Danny Boy.
What?
Doing sexual things, doing drugs.
This is huge. So is there any evidence?
Well, Ticket seems to really believe Burgess's, and when the news came out that Burgess's was subpoenaed by a grand jury, Ticket was like over the moon.
Wow.
But a grand jury subpoena, that's not something to play around with. It means that the feds, they're taking these allegations very seriously, and Burgess has to cooperate. He's legally obligated to cooperate.
And lying to a grand jury is, well, perjury.
Perjury. Big legal trouble.
Huge. Okay, so we have these potential tapes with crazy stuff on them.
Yeah.
And it's not just the underage stuff either.
No.
Right. Didn't he name some other big names?
He did, and they're big. He's claiming footage of J-Lo, Cassie, and Ray J, all doing some pretty compromising stuff, apparently.
Wow.
And then on top of all that, there's talk of weird stuff like naked basketball games with baby oil.
Naked basketball games with baby oil? I mean, come on. This is like a movie.
That sounds a little crazy.
But if any of this is true, these tapes could be huge.
Oh, massive.
Yes.
For Diddy and for everyone else involved.
For everyone.
Yeah. It's important to remember that at this point, these are just accusations.
Right.
We shouldn't jump to conclusions.
Right.
But if the tapes are real and what Burgess is saying is true,
yeah,
this could be a huge turning point.
Totally. And let's not forget the whole Kim Porter thing.
Oh, right.
He said he has her unedited diary.
He did. And he said he got the information for the book straight from Kim Porter herself.
Wow.
And from what Ticket's been saying, some of the things Burgess has hinted at, it seems like Porter maybe wasn't too happy with Diddy.
That's interesting. It's like this whole other layer is about to get peeled back.
Yeah.
So we have alleged tapes, claims of all this illegal stuff happening.
Right.
And a possible connection to his deceased ex-girlfriend. This is a lot to unpack.
It really is. And we're really just scratching the surface here. Remember, Ticket is known for his stories. So we need to be careful about taking everything he says as it's fact.
Yeah, definitely.
But even if we take it with a grain of salt, this is still potentially explosive.
Yeah. We have to consider what this could do to Diddy's legal case, his reputation, the whole music industry.
Absolutely. This is a story with a lot of moving pieces. It's going to be fascinating to see how this plays out.
Okay, so we've laid the foundation. Now let's really get into some of these specific claims and why Ticket thinks this could be such a big turning point.
Sounds good. Let's dive in. Okay, so let's really break down these tapes. Burgess is saying there's footage of everything, drugs, sexual stuff, even some weird rituals with baby oil.
Yeah, it's a lot. Like, it's hard to know what to believe, what to even focus on, like naked basketball with baby oil. Come on. But seriously, if these tapes are real,
yeah,
there could be some serious legal trouble.
Absolutely. We could be talking drug charges, sexual misconduct, maybe even producing and distributing illegal content. And if there really are underage people on those tapes, like Burgess is saying, that just makes things even worse, legally speaking.
Right. Okay, so the legal stuff is huge. But what about, reputation? These are some pretty wild accusations. I mean, even for the music industry.
It's a PR nightmare. Imagine the headline, Diddy's secret tapes exposed. Shocking footage rocks the music industry. I mean, this could really ruin Diddy's image, like completely. Brands might drop him, his businesses could suffer, everything.
And it's not just Diddy. Think about the other celebrities he named. Their careers could be over. This could change how we see the music industry forever.
Totally. It makes you think about celebrity culture, right? We put these people on pedestals, but what happens when we see what's really going on behind the scenes?
It's like we have to realize that fame and money don't mean someone is a good person.
Exactly. And it makes us ask ourselves some tough questions. How much are we willing to ignore when it comes to the people we admire? Where's the line between personal responsibility and just being caught up in the whole celebrity thing?
Okay, so we've talked about the what ifs, but let's get back to Burgess's. This guy seems to have a lot of dirt on Diddy.
How?
And he's not afraid to talk. But how do we know he's telling the truth? What's his motive here?
That's the big question, isn't it? Is he some kind of hero exposing the truth about the music industry? Or is he just a bitter ex-associate trying to get revenge?
Right. Or maybe it's a little bit of both.
Maybe.
It's like a real-life mystery.
It is. And Ticket is like our narrator, taking us through all the twists and turns. And Ticket, he really seems to believe Burgess's. He even connected him with Ariel Mitchell, the lawyer who's representing some of Diddy's accusers.
Oh, yeah. I remember him talking about that. He was saying maybe Mitchell knew about these tapes this whole time.
Yeah. And that she was just waiting for the right time to use them.
That's smart.
Yeah. It's like a classic legal strategy. Save your best evidence for when it will do the most damage. And if these tapes are as bad as Burgess says they are, they could be what takes Diddy down.
This is getting intense. Diddy's next court date is in a few days, right?
Yeah, it is.
I can't imagine what it's going to be like in that courtroom. This whole tape thing just adds a whole other level of drama.
It really does.
Yeah.
And legally speaking, there are some challenges with these tapes. Like if they weren't obtained legally, they might not even be allowed in court.
That's a good point.
Yeah, there are rules about how this kind of evidence can be used. It's not just about what's on the tapes, but how they got them. That could make all the difference in how this plays out.
Right, and then there's proving that they're real.
Exactly.
Can they prove that these tapes haven't been messed with? That they're actually what Burgess says they are? It's not like an old VHS tape where you can see if someone cut it or something. Digital files are easy to change.
Exactly. So even if these tapes do come out, there's going to be a whole other fight about if they're even real and if a court can even consider them.
This is messy, and it feels like it's just the beginning. But okay, let's say these tapes are real, and the court says they can be used. What happens to Diddy? Could he get even more charges?
Well, like I said earlier, the charges could be all kinds of things. Drug offenses, sexual misconduct. It all depends on what's on those tapes.
Right.
And then there's the possibility of a superseding indictment.
Oh, yeah. That sounds serious. What does that even mean?
So it's basically like a legal power-up. The prosecution can bring even more charges based on new evidence, like in this case, the tapes. It basically raises the stakes for Diddy a lot.
So he could get more charges and maybe a longer sentence if he's found guilty.
Exactly.
Wow. Okay, so the legal stuff is huge, but let's zoom out a little. What does all of this say about the music industry? I mean, is this just how it is?
It definitely makes you think about the culture of secrecy in the entertainment world. These rumors about parties and drugs and exploitation have been around forever, but no one ever really does anything about it.
It's like what happens backstage stays backstage.
Exactly. And that allows all this bad stuff to keep happening. People get away with things because everyone's afraid to talk.
But with these tapes, it feels like the curtain is being pulled back.
Yeah.
We're seeing what's really going on.
Right. And that's why Ticket thinks this could be a turning point. He thinks this could be a wake-up call for the whole industry, a chance for things to change.
He was even saying that people need to stop worshiping celebrities and start paying attention to the bad stuff that's happening.
He has a point, though. We put these people on such high pedestals. We forget that they're just people. And and they can do bad things, just like anyone else. It's important to be critical even of the people you admire.
Ticket even hinted that what Diddy is accused of might be more common than we think. Like maybe there are other big names involved.
That's where we have to be careful. It's possible, but we can't just jump to conclusions without proof.
Of course. But Ticket loves to speculate. He even told his viewers to watch out for celebrities suddenly leaving the country. He thinks they might be trying to avoid getting subpoenaed because of these tapes.
That's a bit of a stretch, but it's not completely crazy. If you thought you were going to get caught up in something illegal, you'd probably want to get as far away as possible, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you have the money to just hop on a plane and disappear.
Yeah, it all feels very mysterious and dramatic. It makes you wonder what else is going on that we don't know about. How deep does this go?
It's a good question. And this case, no matter what happens, could have a big impact. It might give other victims the courage to come forward. Or maybe it will start a bigger conversation about how to hold people accountable in the music industry.
Okay, we've talked a lot about Diddy, but this story is bigger than him, right? It's about power and exploitation and how people stay silent when bad things are happening.
Absolutely. And while the legal stuff is important, we can't forget about the people involved. The victims. Their lives have been affected by this. Maybe forever.
It's a good reminder that behind all the headlines and court dates, there are real people who have been hurt, and we need to listen to their stories.
Now, Ticket, in his own way, also gets into Diddy's personal life, specifically his relationship with his mother, Janice Combs.
Oh yeah, he went on a whole rant about her. I remember he played a clip from one of his old videos where he was criticizing what she was wearing and how she was acting at a party.
Right, and those comments, even if they're supposed to be funny, they show how messy things can get when your personal life and your professional life mix, especially in the entertainment industry. They also make you think about how different generations see things. What one person thinks is totally inappropriate, another person might think is just having fun.
Ticket also talked about how Diddy and his mother have a complicated relationship. He brought up this alleged incident where Diddy hit his mother, something rapper Kirk Burrs said happened.
Yeah, and then he even talked about an Oedipus complex between Diddy and his mom.
I remember that. He brought up that video of them getting IV treatments together after a party.
Right. And look, it's important not to play armchair psychologist here. We can't diagnose people based on just a few things we've seen. But it does make you wonder about how fame and money can affect family relationships.
Yeah, it definitely seems like Diddy's personal life is just as complicated as his professional life. And Ticket loves to connect those personal details to the bigger story he's telling.
Yeah. It reminds us that even celebrities have private lives. And sometimes those private lives spill out into their public lives in ways that are uncomfortable to watch.
Definitely. Ticket also shared a story from when he worked for Diddy. He said Diddy answered his hotel room door completely naked.
It's funny, but it also makes you wonder about Diddy's behavior. Is this normal for him? Or is he crossing a line?
It's another example of how Ticket mixes personal stories with his commentary. It makes his videos entertaining, but also a little creepy sometimes.
Yeah, I get that. And then there was that interview on AR Dialogue with the guy who said he went to a party with Diddy and Tupac. He said some pretty shocking things about what went on there.
Oh man, that interview was wild.
It was. It felt like we were getting a glimpse into a whole other time in hip-hop when things were just different.
Yeah.
And if that interview is real, it makes you think about the media and why we love celebrity scandals so much.
Ticket was really interested in the part where the guy described someone he called 69, who was apparently at the party with Diddy and Tupac. He made it sound like the 69 guy and Diddy were pretty close.
It's interesting how Ticket connects all these seemingly random pieces of information. He's building this story where it seems like there's a pattern to Diddy's behavior.
Right.
But we have to remember, just because things happen at the same time doesn't mean they're connected.
True. And Ticket really seems to think there's more to this story than we know. He even told his viewers to go back and watch his old videos about Diddy. He said he might have hinted at this stuff before.
It's a common thing to do when you're talking about conspiracies. You link current events to things you said in the past. It makes it seem like you knew it all along.
Yeah, and Ticket is really good at that. He kept reminding everyone that Diddy's court date is coming up. He wants his viewers to pay attention to anything new that comes out, especially about new charges or witnesses.
He's basically turned this whole case into a reality show.
Yeah.
And he's the commentator, giving us the play-by-play and making predictions. It's over the top, for sure. But you can't deny this case is really interesting, and the stakes are high.
For sure. It's crazy. But Ticket also reminded everyone that there are real people involved in this. He told his viewers to remember the victims and how much this has probably hurt them.
Yeah, that's important. We can argue about the legal stuff and what this means for the music industry all day, but we can't forget that real people have been hurt. And if these accusations are true, it's probably really messed them up.
Ticket also talked about those freaky off parties Diddy used to have. He said they were a part of hip-hop culture, but he also said that being part of that scene might have made it hard for him to find real love and happiness.
That's interesting, right?
Yeah.
Him reflecting on the party scene like that, it makes you think that all that partying and chasing pleasure, it might not be worth it in the end. It also shows how much pressure there is when you're famous to always be a certain way.
And then there's Mark Curry. Ticket said that Curry warned people to look at Diddy if anything happened to him. Like he was implying that Diddy might try to kill him or something.
Wow, that's a really serious accusation. We have to be careful about stuff like that. You can't just accuse someone of something that serious without having real proof.
But Ticket really seemed to believe Curry. It's a lot, right? Secret tapes, naked basketball, celebrities running away. It's like we're seeing the dark side of the music industry.
Yeah, and those baby oil rituals that Burgess has talked about, they're really disturbing. It makes you think about, like, consent. And if people were being forced to do things they didn't want to do.
Even if we ignore the really crazy stuff, the whole picture is still messed up. The parties, the power, it's not something most people want to think about.
It makes you question the whole idea of fame and fortune. You think it means happiness, but maybe it just means you can get away with more bad stuff.
Like they say, money can't buy happiness. Maybe it can buy you some wild parties and keep you out of trouble, but it doesn't make you a good person.
Right. And this whole case, no matter how it ends, it could change the music industry. Maybe more victims will speak up. Or maybe people will finally start talking about how to hold powerful people accountable for their actions.
Imagine if people actually took these kinds of accusations seriously. If victims felt safe to come forward. And if the people who did these things actually had to face consequences. That would be a huge change for the music industry.
Yeah, maybe we'll even stop putting celebrities on pedestals so much. Maybe we'll start holding them to a higher standard.
It feels like we're at a turning point. This case could be the thing that makes us finally confront the dark side of the music industry.
And that's what makes this whole thing so interesting. It's not just about Diddy or the tapes or the accusations. It's about something much bigger. It's about our values, about how we see fame and power, and about what we're willing to accept.
So what do you think about all this? We've given you a lot to think about.
Yeah, take some time to process it all. What surprised you? What made you uncomfortable? Does this change how you see the music industry? Or even just people in general?
We don't want to tell you what to think. We just want you to think critically, to question things, and to see that there are a lot of different sides to this story.
And remember, this isn't over yet. Keep an eye on how the case goes, what the media says, and how people react. This is one deep dive that could keep going deeper.
Thanks for joining us. We'll be back soon with another deep dive into something interesting. Until then, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep diving deep.
Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today, we're going deep into a story that you might not believe.
Yeah, it's pretty out there.
No kidding. Okay, so our source today is a little unusual. It's actually excerpts from this YouTube video.
Oh, I think I saw that one. It's called, what was it? Diddy's ex-wife's tell-all book reveals everything. Must watch.
That's the one. So in this video, the YouTuber, Noah Jacob, claims he has this, like, lost diary from Kim Porter, Diddy's ex.
The one that got pulled from shelves, right?
Right, yeah. And let me tell you, he reads some pretty intense stuff. It's all about Diddy, obviously. It's full of, like, alleged secrets and crazy stories.
About, like, wild encounters, dangerous situations, that sort of thing.
Exactly. And right off the bat, the video starts with this disclaimer about possible criminal activity and even hints at some connection to Kim Porter's death.
And Jamie Foxx and Al B.
Sure.
too, right?
Yeah, it's a lot. Like, right from the beginning, you're like, whoa, where is this going?
Definitely sets the stage for a wild ride.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Okay, so the video starts by talking about Kim Porter's early life, you know, meeting Al B.
Sure.
Having Quincy, her modeling career.
And then, bam, she meets Sean Diddy Combs.
Right, and the YouTuber portrays Diddy as this, like, super charming, persistent dude.
Like, he just wouldn't take no for an answer. Kim was hesitant at first, but he kept pursuing her.
Yeah, and it's like from there, the relationship just explodes into this whirlwind, you know, hot and heavy, then on again, off again, tons of drama.
And then that's where the story takes a turn, and some of these more shocking claims start to emerge.
Like what?
Well, for example, there are claims about Diddy's sexual preferences, things that supposedly made Kim uncomfortable, and even one incident that she describes where he asked her to use a sex toy on him, and it ended with him bleeding.
Okay, hold on. That's...
Yeah, it's intense, and it raises questions about consent and the power dynamics at play.
For sure. And then it gets even darker because the diary claims that Diddy first hit Kim after she accused him of being with Clive Davis.
If true, that is obviously incredibly disturbing.
No kidding. And from that point on, it seems like every page, every story is more shocking than the last.
Is one bombshell after another.
Right. Like there's this whole account of an alleged threesome with Diddy, Kim Porter, and Mary J. Blige. And then another crazy scene where Kim supposedly walks in on Diddy and LB together in a very compromising position.
Yeah, implying that something was going on there.
Yeah, definitely. And again, it all points to these really unbalanced power dynamics in Diddy's relationships. It sounds like Kim often felt trapped and scared.
Like she couldn't escape, even when things got bad.
Yeah, that's a really scary thought. And then there's this whole other element of like voodoo and curses.
Oh yeah, the YouTuber reads from the diary that Diddy was supposedly involved in that stuff, like he was using it to control people.
Seriously?
Well, that's what the diary claims. Who knows if it's true? But it definitely adds this whole other layer of intrigue and makes you wonder about what Diddy was really capable of.
Okay, so then we get to the part about Kim's relationship with Tupac.
Right, so the diary says that they slept together while she and Diddy had an open relationship.
So that wasn't the issue. The issue was that Diddy supposedly made moves on Tupac.
That's what the diary suggests, yeah. And that's what really caused problems between them.
Like jealousy.
Yeah, it seems like it. And that's where this whole thing gets really crazy because, according to the YouTuber, Kim overheard Diddy ordering a hit on Tupac.
Whoa, wait a minute. Are you serious?
That's what's in the diary. And it goes on to say that Diddy and Biggie saw Tupac after he was shot, wounded in an elevator, but didn't help him.
Wow. I mean, if that's true.
It's a really heavy accusation.
It is. And the story doesn't stop there. It says that Diddy threatened Kim after she overheard him talking about the shooting, like he was warning her to keep quiet.
Yeah, supposedly he squeezed her hand really hard, like a threat.
This is crazy. It sounds like something out of a movie.
Right. And the YouTuber goes on to read that Diddy wanted to use the whole East Coast, West Coast rivalry to make money. Like he was going to release a diss track aimed at Tupac even after the shooting.
That's messed up.
It really is. It paints a pretty dark picture of Diddy, like he was willing to exploit a tragedy for profit.
Okay, then there's the part about Kadada Jones, Tupac's fiance. According to the diary, she confronted Diddy at an award show and accused him of being involved in the shooting.
And the YouTuber's narration suggests that Diddy knew not to mess with her because of her connections, you know, being Quincy Jones' daughter and all.
So he couldn't control her like he maybe could with others. But he still got his revenge, right? The diary says that he peed in her drink at the award show.
Yeah, that's what the YouTuber reads. I know, it's pretty hard to believe, but it's there in the diary. And it just shows this other side of Diddy, like he was vindictive and willing to stoop pretty low.
Okay, so then we get to this bombshell where the YouTuber suggests that Diddy actually prefers men and was using Kim as a cover.
Okay, now that's where we have to be careful, because just because the diary might mention Diddy with other men doesn't automatically mean he was using Kim as a cover.
Or we can't jump to conclusions.
Yeah, no, definitely not. But the YouTuber keeps building this narrative and reads from the diary about Kim supposedly finding Diddy in bed with Jada Pinkett Smith. And get this, Will Smith was there too, but snuggled up with someone else.
Oh my God, so the implication is that it was Diddy.
Yeah, that's what the YouTuber leads you to believe. And that's a whole other level of drama and raises a lot of questions.
For sure. And then, oh man, it gets even darker. The YouTuber reads this conversation from the diary, where Kim overhears Diddy talking about Biggie.
Yeah, he's talking to someone called like X in the diary, and he was saying that Biggie was worth more to him dead than alive, and that he wouldn't protect him if he left his record label.
Oh man, I mean that's just
disturbing, chilling. I don't even know what to say.
I know, right? It's like the Tupac stuff all over again. And of course, Kim confronts him about it, but his response is just as cold.
Yeah, he basically tells her that he's not going to kill anyone, but he's also not going to protect someone who's not 100% loyal to them.
It's so manipulative.
Absolutely. And then there's this part where the YouTuber says that the diary describes Diddy holding Kim at gunpoint after they broke up.
Are you kidding me? This is insane.
It is. It really paints a picture of Diddy as dangerous and violent. The YouTuber reads how Kim was terrified, begging him not to hurt her, especially with Quincy in the house.
And what did Diddy say?
It's scary. He basically tells her he wouldn't shoot her because it would be too easy to trace. He says if he wanted to kill her, he'd use something untraceable, like poison.
What?
Yeah, it's really unsettling.
Totally. Okay, so to top it all off, we get to this encounter between Diddy and Valletta Wallace, Biggie's mom, after Biggie died. According to the YouTuber, Diddy made Kim meet with Valletta to ask for some of Biggie's money.
Oh yeah, it's like even in the face of tragedy, Diddy's main concern was his own financial gain.
It's just heartless.
It really is, and that's where the first part of this video ends.
Leaving us with all these questions and this feeling of, like, what the heck did we just watch?
I know, right? But don't worry, there's more to come, because the YouTuber says the rest of Kim Porter's story is coming in part 2.
Oh man, I don't know if I'm ready for more. But I guess we got to find out what else his diary has to say.
We do. So buckle up, because I have a feeling things are about to get even crazier. All right, so we're back, ready for more of this crazy story.
I think so. I mean, after that first video, I'm not sure what to expect.
Yeah, it was pretty wild. A lot of heavy stuff, a lot of disturbing allegations.
Yeah, it's hard to even process it all, you know? Like, we went from Diddy being this charming music mogul to hearing about alleged murder plots and voodoo.
It's a lot to take in, for sure. It really makes you think about the image we have of these celebrities and how much of it is, you know, just a carefully crafted facade.
Yes, like, can we really trust anything we see in the media?
That's a big question. But let's try to stay focused on this particular story for now. So remember, we're only getting one side of it right. The version of events, according to Kim Porter's supposed diary.
Right. And we have to be careful about just taking everything at face value. Just because it's written down doesn't make it true.
Exactly. But even with that in mind, even if we take it all with a grain of salt, it's still pretty compelling stuff.
It is. And it makes you wonder, like, what's the motivation behind releasing this information now?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, the YouTuber claims that Kim Porter wanted her story told, you know, that she wanted to expose Diddy, but at the same time, it's a YouTube video, so there's obviously a potential for profit here too.
It's hard to know what to believe sometimes.
It is, and that's why it's so important to be critical, you know, to think for ourselves, weigh the evidence, and consider all the possible motives.
Okay, so let's try to do that. Based on what we've heard so far, what are like the most important takeaways for you? What do you think our listeners should be thinking about after hearing this?
Well, for me, it's the power dynamics that keeps coming up again and again. The diary, assuming it is really Kim Porter's, paints this picture of Diddy as someone who uses his power and influence to get what he wants, regardless of who he hurts.
He plays by his own rules.
Right. And the people around him, including Kim, are often left feeling powerless to stop him.
And that's even if we don't believe all the specific allegations. Just the overall tone, the feeling of being trapped and afraid, that's really powerful stuff.
It is, and it makes you think about all those other stories we hear about, you know, powerful figures in the music industry, or any industry really, who abuse their power.
Like the whole hashtag Me Too movement. It's a reminder that this kind of stuff happens all the time, even if it doesn't always make the headlines.
Exactly. So even though this particular story might seem like just gossip, it speaks to something much larger. It's about accountability, calling out bad behavior, and protecting those who are vulnerable.
Okay, so we've talked about power dynamics, the motives behind releasing this information, the potential for, you know, exaggeration or even fabrication. But what about the actual content? Like, is there anything specific that you find particularly compelling or noteworthy?
Well, aside from the obvious shock value of some of these allegations, I think the most important thing to focus on is the potential consequences of Diddy's actions. Like, if even a fraction of what's in this diary is true, it raises some serious legal and ethical questions.
Like, could he face criminal charges?
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about allegations of assault, threats, even involvement in a murder plot. Those are serious crimes. So if there's enough evidence to support those claims, then yeah, legal action could definitely be taken.
It's a lot to think about.
It is. And even beyond the legal stuff, there's the whole question of reputation and public image, right? Diddy has built his career on being this successful, charismatic businessman. But if these allegations stick, it could really damage his whole empire. Think about it. Brands might not want to be associated with him anymore. Fans might turn away. Investors might lose confidence.
Could be a total domino effect.
Exactly. And that's why I think this story is so important. It's not just about gossip. It's about the potential for these kinds of accusations to bring down even the most powerful figures.
So what do you think happens next? I mean, will Diddy even address these allegations? Will there be an investigation?
That's hard to say. It depends on a lot of things, you know? Will other people come forward to corroborate Kim's story? Will law enforcement take these claims seriously and actually investigate? Will Diddy's lawyers try to discredit the diary and the YouTuber?
These are all just waiting to see what happens.
Yeah, it is. And while we wait, I think it's important to keep talking about these issues, you know? Keep asking questions, keep challenging the status quo, and keep holding powerful people accountable for their actions.
I totally agree. So where do we go from here? We've got the second part of the video to watch, and who knows what else might come out.
That's right. And even beyond the specific story, there are so many broader conversations we need to be having about power, fame, and the responsibilities that come with both.
It's definitely a lot to think about.
It is, but that's what makes this kind of deep dive so valuable, you know? It's not just about the surface level drama, it's about using that drama as a springboard to explore these deeper issues and to challenge our own assumptions.
Well, I'm ready for part 2. Let's see what else this YouTuber has to say.
Okay, but you might want to brace yourself. It sounds like things are about to get even wilder.
Man, that second video was even crazier than the first one.
It's a lot, right? My head is spinning.
So many intense stories and shocking claims.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to believe some of the things we heard. Like, did that really happen?
You know, it's like watching some crazy TV drama, but it's real life.
Right, and these are real people, you know, with real feelings. We can't forget that.
Absolutely. And even if we can't be sure what really happened, those allegations raise some important questions about power, fame, and accountability. That's what makes it so fascinating, right? It's not just gossip.
No, definitely not. It's a way to look at these bigger issues, these bigger themes that are playing out.
Okay, so we've heard a lot of claims, some more believable than others. For you, what are the key takeaways? Like, what should our listeners be thinking about after listening to all of this?
Well, first off, it's crucial to remember that this is just one side of the story. What we've heard is Kim Porter's account, or at least what the YouTuber says is her account. And we have to be careful about accepting everything as fact.
Right, there's always more to the story than what we see on the surface.
Exactly. We haven't heard Diddy's side of things, and there are all these other people involved who we haven't heard from.
It's complicated, right? Like, we can't really understand all the dynamics at play without more information.
Definitely. But even with what we have, there are some broader points we can consider. The theme of power and control, for example, that's really striking.
Oh yeah, it comes up over and over again in those videos.
And it seems like Kim often felt powerless in her relationship with Diddy.
Which raises the question, how do these power imbalances affect relationships?
Right, exactly. What are the signs of an abusive relationship? And how can we create a culture where people feel safe speaking out against abuse, no matter who the abuser is?
That's so important. And it's not just about romantic relationships, right? It applies to workplaces, families, society as a whole.
Yeah, you're right. Power dynamics are everywhere. And I think this story also highlights what can happen when that power goes unchecked.
Like, if those allegations are true, Diddy's actions really hurt Kim and others around him.
Right, and it makes you think, does fame and wealth sometimes shield people from consequences?
It's scary to think about, but it makes sense, right?
Yeah, it does. Like, is it possible to be so powerful that you become untouchable? Or does justice eventually catch up with everyone, no matter who they are?
Whoa, it's a heavy question.
It is, right? It makes you wonder how many other stories are out there, stories of abuse that haven't been told.
And that's why it's so important to keep talking about this stuff.
Right, to keep these conversations going, to challenge the status quo, to hold those in power accountable.
And to support those who are vulnerable.
Exactly. We all have a role to play in creating a more just world.
This deep dive has been, well, intense is an understatement.
Yeah, for sure. But valuable, too. It's a great example of how we can use storytelling and critical thinking to explore these complex issues.
I agree. And I think we've all learned something from it.
Hopefully our listeners have, too. Like,
you guys sent us a ton of stuff for this one. Legal analyses, interviews, court documents. Oh, man. And this is a tough one to wrap our heads around. We're talking accusations going way back, serious misconduct claims, and some big questions about power and accountability, especially in the music biz. Luckily, we have expert speaker here with us to help us sort through it all. Their expertise on legal analysis and the whole celebrity culture thing is going to be super helpful in understanding all this, that's for sure.
Glad to be here. This case, it's fascinating, but it's disturbing too. It really shows how some things just aren't working right in the system, you know?
Okay, so you've had a chance to look over all the material.
Yeah.
So let's jump right in. First things first, the federal charges against Diddy, Sean Combs. Could you give us a refresher on what those are about?
You bet. So a grand jury indicted Combs on some heavy charges. We're talking racketeering, conspiracy, sex trafficking, and transporting people for prostitution. This is serious stuff. If he's found guilty, Combs could be looking at a lot of time behind bars.
Wow, okay, that's a lot to unpack. And something else that stuck with me from the material was this term freak-offs. Did you come across anything in the documents you looked at that explains what that actually meant?
Yeah, that term pops up a lot. In the court documents and witness testimonies, it seems to refer to these parties, these gatherings, where Combs allegedly orchestrated, like he coerced people into sexual acts, often involving drugs too. It's a disturbing detail, definitely adds a whole other layer to these accusations.
It's hard to even hear that, you know?
It is, and it is important to remember that these are allegations at this stage. Combs is still saying he's innocent, but the sheer number of accusations and how consistent they are, you have to take that seriously.
Of course, yeah, that's right. And then on top of the federal case, we have this wave of civil lawsuits. I mean, a ton of lawsuits.
Yeah, over 100 people are being represented by Tony Busby, this attorney. They're all claiming a pattern of drugging and sexual assault by Combs. Busby's been very outspoken, arguing that these cases show a pattern of abuse that goes back decades.
It's kind of overwhelming, the number of cases. You know? Was there anything in particular that jumped out at you from all the documents?
There are 2 new lawsuits that were just filed this week. They're really unsettling. One of them was filed by a man who says Combs drugged and assaulted him at an audition. He was only 10 years old at the time.
10 years old? Oh, wow. That's just, I don't even know what to say to that. It's awful.
It is, and what makes it even worse is the lawsuit claims that the meeting was set up by a consultant, someone hired by the boy's own parents. It raises some serious questions about the responsibility of the people around Combs and their potential role in making this alleged abuse possible.
It just makes you wonder, how could something like this happen? Were there no red flags for anyone?
That's what a lot of people are asking. The second lawsuit comes from a man who says he was assaulted by Combs and his bodyguard at a Making the Band audition. He was 17 at the time.
Okay, so at least that one kind of fits that classic picture we see, the exploitation in the entertainment world, you know?
Exactly. And this case really shows how those power dynamics work in that industry. These young, aspiring artists, they're often vulnerable, just wanting their big break. They can easily become targets for exploitation.
So you've got this young guy, probably starstruck, hoping this is his chance, and then this allegedly happened.
That's the story we're hearing from a lot of these lawsuits, and it's important to keep in mind, Combs has denied all these allegations very strongly. He's saying he's innocent.
So he's saying these lawsuits have no merit at all.
His legal team is arguing they're publicity stunts, people just looking for money. They're stressing Combs a right to due process and being presumed innocent until proven guilty.
Which, of course, he has every right to. But then how do they explain so many people coming forward with similar allegations?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? You can't ignore the sheer volume of lawsuits and how similar the stories are. And this leads to a really interesting legal strategy that some of Combs' accusers are using. This concept of gender-motivated violence.
Okay, now that's something I definitely need you to break down for me and for our listeners.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I totally get what that means in this context.
Sure. It's a legal framework. It basically recognizes that violence can be directed at someone based on their gender. Several of the lawsuits against Combs are using this argument. They're saying his alleged actions fit this framework because they come from this desire to exert power and control over women.
So could this case set a precedent for how these kinds of accusations are handled in the future?
It's possible. It's a pretty new legal strategy. And if it's successful in these cases, it could have big implications for other cases that involve gender-based violence and power dynamics.
That's interesting how this case, with all the celebrity and media attention, it could actually end up shaping legal strategies in smaller cases too.
Absolutely. This case could have effects that go way beyond Combs' individual fate.
Okay, so we've got these serious charges, a bunch of lawsuits, this new legal framework being tested. What else is important for us to understand about the legal stuff going on here?
Well, we can't ignore where Combs is being held right now. While he's awaiting trial, he's at the Metropolitan Detention Center, the MDC, and it's got a pretty bad reputation.
Yeah, I remember reading about that in the stuff you sent. It didn't sound like a nice place to be.
It's been hit with accusations of violence, terrible conditions, drug smuggling, not enough staff. There's even an investigation going on right now involving multiple agencies. Look into all this.
So this isn't just a minor inconvenience. It sounds like a whole other mess on top of everything else.
Exactly. Combs' lawyer, Mark Agneff, he's been talking about the conditions at the MDC, saying the food is inedible, and pointing out how it's affecting Combs' mental and physical well-being.
Could this actually impact the legal strategy in the case?
Absolutely. Agneff is arguing that those awful conditions are violating Combs' basic human rights, and that it's making it harder for him to prepare for his defense.
It's hard to believe that something like the conditions in a detention center could have such a big effect on a high-profile case like this.
It just goes to show. The legal process isn't just about ideas and courtroom arguments, it's about real people, and how the system really impacts their lives.
This whole MDC situation, it really adds another dimension to the case, right? It's not just about the charges themselves, it's about the whole system around those charges.
Yeah, it really does. And this whole thing with Combs at the MDC, it brings up these bigger worries about the whole U.S. prison system, you know? The lack of transparency, the lack of accountability, it's a big problem.
Reading about the MDC, it makes you think about all the other people in there, people facing those same conditions. But they don't have the spotlight. They don't have the same legal resources that someone like Combs has.
That's a really important point. Combs' case, it's unusual in a lot of ways, but it also shows us these systemic problems in the justice system, problems that affect a lot of people, especially those from marginalized communities.
Yeah, it's a reminder that justice isn't just about individual cases. It's about making sure everyone's treated fairly and humanely, no matter how much money they have or their social status.
Exactly. But going back to Combs' situation, there's this other legal thing we should talk about. It has some potentially huge implications for the case. It was mentioned in some of those legal analyses you sent over.
Oh, you mean that superseding indictment thing? Gotta be honest, legal jargon always makes my head spin a little.
Oh, don't worry, it's not as complicated as it sounds. Basically, a superseding indictment means the prosecution could bring more charges against Combs based on new evidence they find, or maybe more testimony from the grand jury.
So they could add even more charges on top of what he's already facing.
Exactly. And so far, the prosecution's been pretty quiet about the details of those grand jury proceedings.
So they're probably not done building their case yet.
It's likely. The fact that they're still gathering evidence, hearing testimony, it suggests they might be thinking about expanding the charges.
Would that mean a whole new trial then? Or would they just tack it on to the existing case?
A superseding indictment wouldn't necessarily mean starting from scratch with a new trial, but it would definitely make things more complicated. And it could really delay everything. You'd probably have more discovery, more motions, more legal back and forth. It could add months, maybe even years to the whole process.
So this whole thing could drag on for a really long time.
It's definitely possible, yeah. And all of this is happening while the media and the public are watching everything very closely. This is a case that's really captured the public's attention.
Yeah, it's like a legal thriller, right? You've got power, fame, these shocking accusations, and this huge legal battle with potentially big consequences for everyone involved.
Absolutely. It's a story that resonates with a lot of people, and the outcome could have a big impact on how we deal with power, accountability, and justice, not just in the entertainment industry, but in society as a whole.
So we've talked about the federal charges, the civil lawsuits, the MDC situation, and now this possibility of a superseding indictment. What else do people need to know about the legal side of this case?
One important thing is the evidence that the prosecution's given to the defense. There's a whole bunch of digital stuff. Text messages, audio and video recordings, photographs, documents from Combs' personal devices.
It's always amazing to me how much our digital stuff reveals about our lives. Even when we think we've deleted something, it's like a digital shadow always following us around.
That's true, and in this case, that digital shadow could be really important. Those records could back up the allegations against Combs, or they could contradict them.
It's like we have access to his thoughts, his intentions.
Right. In a way, yeah. And the prosecution is already saying that some of this evidence supports their claim that Combs tried to tamper with witnesses, which is a big deal. And it was a big reason why he was denied bail.
Oh, yeah. I remember reading about that. Wasn't it something about Combs trying to contact potential witnesses?
Exactly. The prosecution says Combs tried to influence what those witnesses would say, which is a serious offense, and it could lead to more charges.
It seems like every new development in this case just makes it more complicated. It's this whole tangled web of Evidence, accusations, legal arguments.
It really is. And both the prosecution and the defense have a lot of work to do. This is a big legal battle with high stakes. They both need skilled and experienced legal teams to navigate all this.
It's interesting to see how this is all playing out in the court of public opinion, too, alongside the actual legal stuff.
Yeah, that's a good point. All the media attention adds another layer of complexity. It can be hard to separate what people think is happening from what's actually going on in the case.
In this case especially, it deals with some really sensitive issues. Sexual assault, power dynamics, celebrity culture. It's not just about the legal stuff. It's about the impact on society, too.
For sure. This case makes us face some uncomfortable truths about how power can be abused and how hard it is for victims to come forward, especially against someone powerful and influential.
And we can't forget about the tension between a victim's right to privacy and the defendant's right to confront their accuser. We saw that in the recent court order, the one that required one of the Jane Doe plaintiffs to reveal her identity.
Right, that was a big moment in the case. It showed how hard it is for the courts to balance those rights. Protecting the privacy and safety of alleged victims is really important, but so is making sure that defendants have a fair chance to defend themselves.
It seems like there are no easy answers in this case. Every decision, every piece of evidence, every legal argument, it all carries so much weight, it could affect the whole outcome.
It's a case that demands that we think carefully about both the legal principles and the impact on people's lives. It's not just about winning or losing. It's about finding the truth and getting justice, and that takes time.
And with a case this complicated, it's important to remember that the legal process is meant to be slow and deliberate. It's not about rushing to judgment. It's about making sure the
and dramatic moments in court. The reality is that the legal process is usually slow and methodical, with each step carefully considered.
The good reminder that real life isn't like an episode of Law and Order.
Yeah.
It doesn't all wrap up neatly in an hour.
Right, exactly.
So we've covered a lot today. For someone who's just tuning in now, what would you say is the key takeaway? What really stands out to you about this whole case?
You know, I think what gets me is how this case connects to all these bigger conversations we're having about power, about accountability, especially in industries like music and entertainment where there's this culture of silence.
It's like this case is forcing us to look at some uncomfortable truths about ourselves, about society.
Yeah, it is. And it makes us think about the systems that allow these kinds of things to happen and the struggles victims face when they try to speak up.
We talked about the legal details, the evidence, the conditions at the MDC, but really this is a case about people.
Absolutely. It's about people who've been hurt. A system that sometimes doesn't protect those who are vulnerable, and the fight for justice, for accountability.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought, something to consider. Is this case against Sean Combs? Is it an example of someone powerful finally facing consequences? Or is it more of a warning about trial by media, the possibility of false accusations?
That's a tough one. I don't think there's an easy answer.
It's a question people will be debating for a while, I think, and we might not even know the answer after all the legal stuff is over.
This case brings up so many questions about our legal system, our culture, how we think about power and holding people responsible. It's something we need to keep discussing, even after the news stories fade away.
This deep dive has been really eye-opening for me, and I'm sure our listeners will be thinking about this for a long time, too. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive. We'll definitely be keeping up with this story as it develops. But for now, we want to hear from you. What struck you as the most important part of all this? Let us know. And until next time, take care. Okay, so are you ready to dive into some serious drama?
Always.
Today we're looking into Sean Diddy Combs.
Oh, wow, Diddy.
Yeah, and things are about to get pretty wild.
Yeah.
I mean, you know Diddy, right? Music mogul, entrepreneur,
yeah,
the whole bit. But now he's facing some serious allegations.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We've got this source material straight from Courtney Burgess.
Okay.
And he's a key witness in this whole thing.
All right.
And he's claiming to have mountains of digital evidence.
Oh, wow.
That could expose, like, some real shocking secrets about Diddy. And get this guy, Burgess.
Yeah.
He just testified before a federal grand jury.
No way.
Yeah, so this is a first-hand information.
So this is serious stuff.
Straight from the source.
Wow.
Yeah. So what makes it even more intense is that we're not talking about just like rumors or gossip here.
Right.
This is a grand jury subpoena.
Okay.
So the government's really looking into potentially bringing criminal charges.
So they think Burgess might actually have evidence?
Yeah, they believe he might have something big.
Wow, that's huge.
Yeah, and are you ready for this? The evidence.
Okay.
11 flash drives.
11.
11.
What?
That belong to Diddy's ex-girlfriend, Kim Porter.
That's a lot of flash drives.
Right.
Like, what could possibly be on there?
Well, he's claiming that these drives contain videos, a manuscript,
Oh, wow.
and who knows what else.
Manuscript, huh?
Yeah, and he's saying it could mean big trouble for Diddy
Oh, boy.
and even some other big celebrities.
It's like A-list.
Oh, yeah, A-list celebrities.
Wow.
So 11 flash drives. That's a crazy amount of potential evidence.
Yeah, that's a lot. It seems like someone was trying to document something.
Right, like why else would you have that many?
Yeah.
So Burgess is saying these videos show Diddy with 8 different celebrities.
8.
8. 6 men and 2 women.
Okay.
And he's even implying that some of these people might have been underage.
What whole other level?
Right. And intoxicated.
Oh, wow. This is getting serious.
Yeah, it really raises the stakes.
Yeah, it really does.
Hold on a sec. Did he say anything about hidden cameras?
Oh, you know what he did?
Oh, that's creepy.
Burgess mentioned that there were cameras hidden in places where people would expect privacy.
Like what kind of places?
He didn't get into specifics.
Oh, that's so disturbing.
Yeah, and, recording someone without their knowledge or consent,
Right.
especially in private settings, that's not just, ethically wrong.
Right.
It can lead to some serious legal trouble.
It makes you wonder, like, how long this has been going on.
Right.
And it gets even crazier because we know that federal marshals actually went to Burgess's house with a subpoena.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah. And, even though his lawyer's saying it wasn't like a raid,
Okay.
it still adds, another layer of seriousness to the situation.
It means the feds are really paying attention.
Definitely. They think this is big.
A grand jury subpoena, that's not something they just hand out.
Exactly. They're building a case here. And they think Burgess and those flash drives are a big piece of the puzzle.
Wow, this is really heating up.
Yeah. So let's talk about this mysterious manuscript.
Yeah, the manuscript.
Right. Is it really Kim Porter's memoir, like he's saying?
Right, or is it something else?
Yeah. It's hard to know for sure, right?
Yeah, gotta be careful.
So Burgess is saying that he thinks it's based on her personal diaries,
Okay.
but he admits that he doesn't actually know who put it all together into like an actual manuscript.
Right, that's interesting.
And he even shared this quote.
From the manuscript.
Yeah, from the manuscript. He said, Kim made me promise that if something happened to her,
Wow.
I would make sure this book became public.
That's a little chilling.
Right.
Chills, right.
Yeah, it's like she knew something was going to happen.
Foreshadowing or something.
And to make it even weirder, Burgess says he talked to Kim Porter just hours before he got the manuscript.
Really?
Yeah.
That's a pretty big coincidence.
Right. It's like straight out of a movie.
It makes you wonder about the timing for sure.
Yeah.
And how everything's connected.
Exactly.
We'll definitely have to dig into that more later.
Okay, so let's talk about this transformation that Burgess is describing about Diddy.
Oh yeah, the transformation.
He says he's known Diddy for over 30 years.
Wow, that's a long time.
Right. Basically, since Diddy first came onto the scene.
Okay.
And he says Diddy has changed a lot over the years.
Like how?
Like he says he went from being ambitious to being like ruthless.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like someone willing to do anything to get what he wants.
That's a pretty heavy accusation.
Right.
Yeah.
It makes you think like what could have caused that kind of change.
Yeah.
Assuming this is all true, of course.
Right, of course. Got to remember that this is all just allegations right now.
Right. Right.
Diddy hasn't been convicted of anything.
Right. Innocent until proven guilty, right?
Exactly. But still, this whole idea of a transformation, it's really powerful, especially in cases like this.
Right. Because it's like, how could this person who seems so good become capable of doing bad things?
Yeah, it makes you think about the complexities of people.
Right. Like maybe their motives aren't always so clear cut.
Exactly.
And we also have to think about what this could mean for the music industry.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, Diddy's a big deal.
Huge.
Right. He has a lot of influence. So this whole thing could have a huge impact.
Yeah, if these allegations are true and if he's found guilty, it could start a really important conversation about,
About what?
about power dynamics and consent and accountability in the industry.
Yeah, it could be a real wake-up call.
Yeah, exactly. So to sum it up,
Okay.
we've got secret videos, hidden cameras, a mysterious manuscript.
Oh, and don't forget the federal investigation.
Oh, yeah, and the feds are involved. It's a lot to take in.
Oh, it's like, where do we even start?
And I have a feeling we're just scratching the surface here.
Right. Like, there's so much more to uncover.
There are so many unanswered questions, and the stakes are really high.
It's crazy to think that Diddy's whole career, his reputation, maybe even his freedom, is on the line here.
It's true. This is a big deal. It's like we're peeling back layers of this story, and every time we do, we get more questions.
Totally. And it makes you think of all those other cases that started small and ended up changing, like whole industries.
Right.
Like the hashtag Me Too movement.
Yeah.
Could this be like that, a turning point?
It's possible. If even a small part of what Burgess is saying is true,
right,
it could make the music industry face some really uncomfortable stuff.
Yeah, like what?
About how power and fame get abused. We've seen it before, right?
Yeah.
Industries protect themselves instead of fixing real problems.
And what about the people in those videos? Burgess said all 8 of those celebrities were victims.
Yeah, that's true. It's hard to say what will happen to them. Some might come forward.
Yeah.
And tell their stories.
Right, and that could lead to even more people coming forward.
Exactly, like a domino effect.
Yeah, a reckoning.
Right. But others might stay quiet.
Out of fear?
Yeah. I mean, going up against someone like Diddy.
Yeah.
That's scary.
Yeah, especially with so much at stake.
But no matter what they do, being secretly recorded like that,
right,
especially in situations where they're vulnerable,
right,
that leaves a mark.
Emotionally?
Yeah. Emotionally, psychologically.
It's really sad to think about how this could affect everyone. Okay, but back to the manuscript.
Okay.
What do you think is in it?
Well, it's a mystery, isn't it?
Totally.
But you can't ignore that quote Burgess gave us.
Yeah, the Kim made me promise one.
Yeah, it's like she had a feeling something bad would happen.
Yeah, maybe she knew more than she let on.
And if it really is her memoir,
yeah,
it could be really personal.
Right, like a window into their relationship.
Exactly.
Do you think it could explain Diddy's transformation?
Maybe. If she kept diaries, like Burgess said.
They might give us clues about Diddy,
Like what kind of clues?
His personality, what he wanted, maybe even some darker stuff.
Yeah, like those impulses Burgess talked about.
Right, it could help us understand how he changed.
Okay, let's play devil's advocate here.
Okay.
What if all this is true and Diddy's found guilty?
Well, it depends on what's on those flash drives.
Right.
But it could be serious stuff. Invasion of privacy, illegal recording, maybe even worse if the video shows something really bad.
Worse like what?
Like exploitation, other crimes.
Wow, this is heavy.
He could face fines, probation, even jail time.
Wow. It's hard to believe that someone like Diddy could lose everything.
It shows you no one's above the law.
Yeah, not even Diddy.
And in this day and age, with social media and everything, reputations can be destroyed instantly.
Yeah, especially for someone so public. And we have to think about his family, too.
Yeah, that's right.
Kim Porter's kids, they already lost their mom.
Right. And now their dad might be caught up in this huge legal mess.
It's just a sad situation all around.
It really highlights how important accountability is.
Yeah.
Especially for people in power.
Absolutely.
Makes you wonder how many other stories like this are out there.
Right. How much goes on that we never hear about.
Yeah, it's unsettling.
And it's not just about celebrities.
What do you mean?
We tend to look the other way when it comes to rich and powerful people.
Yeah, we give them a pass.
Exactly. We put them on a pedestal and ignore the bad stuff.
This case shows us that even fame and money can't protect you from the consequences.
You're right.
It's a good reminder. Okay, let's get back to the investigation. What are you most interested in seeing as this unfolds?
Well, I'm curious if more witnesses come forward.
Like people at those parties.
Yeah, exactly. Their stories could back up what Burgess is saying or contradict it.
Yeah, that would be huge.
And I'm also waiting to see what Diddy does. How he responds to all of this.
Right. Will he deny it? Will he apologize?
Exactly. Could really change how people see him.
It's like we're putting together a puzzle.
A really messy puzzle.
Yeah, and every new piece makes it more complicated. Speaking of which, those 11 flash drives.
Yeah.
How do they analyze all that data?
Well, digital forensics is a whole thing.
Right.
They have to make sure the files are real, that they haven't been messed with.
Okay.
And they look for clues in the data, like when and where the files were created.
So basically, this is going to take a while.
Oh, yeah. This isn't over yet. Lots of twists and turns ahead, I'm sure.
Definitely. This whole thing is a roller coaster.
And remember, the legal system takes time.
Right.
It's not about rushing to judgment. It's about finding out the truth.
Okay, that's a good point. But while we wait, I can't help but think about how this could change how we think about privacy.
Yeah, in the digital age.
Yeah, I mean, hidden cameras, all that stuff.
It's scary, right?
Yeah, it's like, what's private anymore?
Exactly. And with technology always changing, we need to be having conversations about consent and surveillance.
Yeah, because what seems convenient can also be used against us.
Exactly. And this case really highlights that.
It feels like we've just dipped our toes in the water here.
Right.
There's so much we don't know.
Yeah, but this whole thing, it could really change the game.
For Diddy.
Yeah, for Diddy, for the whole industry.
What about the financial side of things for Diddy?
Oh, yeah.
He's built this massive empire.
Right.
Could he lose it all?
It's possible, definitely.
Really?
Legal battles are so expensive.
Oh, yeah.
Even if he wins, his reputation could be shot.
Yep.
Brands might not want to work with him anymore.
Right.
Investors might back out.
Yeah.
And getting new deals could be really tough.
He could lose everything.
Yeah, it's a huge risk.
And what about his legacy? You know, he's seen as this icon, this success story. Could all of this just destroy that?
It's hard to tell how people will react.
Yeah.
Some might believe him no matter what.
Right.
Others might want him canceled completely.
Yeah, it's unpredictable.
It is.
This whole thing really makes you think about, like, what is celebrity?
Oh, yeah.
Like, is there even a difference between the person and the persona?
Right. It's all so blurred.
Do you think this case? Yeah.
We tend to put celebrities on pedestals.
Yeah.
We project all these things onto them.
Right, like they're perfect or something.
But this case shows us that they're just people.
Yeah.
They make mistakes. They have problems just like everyone else.
So we need to be more realistic about them.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, but let's zoom out a little.
Okay.
What are the bigger lessons here? Like, for society as a whole?
Well, it makes you think about power.
Yeah.
And privilege.
Right.
And how some people can get away with things because of it.
Yeah, like there's a different set of rules for them.
Exactly. And it raises questions about how we treat people who don't have that power.
Yeah, the ones whose voices are often silenced.
Yeah. Right. So this is a bigger conversation.
It goes beyond Diddy and the music industry.
Definitely.
So you've seen a lot of cases like this. What's your gut feeling on how this one ends?
Tough to say for sure.
No.
But I think it might end in a plea deal.
What's that?
It's where both sides agree to something to avoid a trial.
Oh, yes.
It happens a lot with high-profile people.
So less messy.
Yeah, less risky for everyone involved.
But even if that happens, this whole thing's already made a big impact.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
People are talking about it. It's raised some important issues.
About power, accountability, the dark side of fame.
Yeah, stuff we need to think about. Well, that was a roller coaster.
It was, wasn't it?
So many twists and turns, so much to unpack.
Yeah, and we just scratched the surface.
But one thing...
Everyone, and welcome back. We're diving into some pretty intense stuff today.
Oh, yeah.
The legal case against Sean Diddy Combs.
Right.
And we've got this news report detailing some recent grand jury testimony. And honestly, it's wild.
Yes.
So this deep dive isn't just about one case anymore, you know?
Yeah.
It's about understanding like the latest developments, but also like how power and trauma like really play out in the entertainment industry.
Yeah, what's so fascinating to me is how this keeps like evolving.
Right.
It's like peeling back layers of an onion, and each layer just reveals something more complex and like...
Yeah. And this latest testimony, it's a whole new level of whoa.
It is.
A witness named Courtney Burgess, right?
Right.
He comes forward claiming to have information that could link Combs to a network of victims much larger than anyone imagined.
Yeah, he said he's got like sex tapes.
What?
Yeah, tapes involving 8 different celebrities. 6 men, 2 women.
Oh, wow.
And it seems like they were all under the influence.
Oh my God. Okay, so that alone is a huge claim.
Oh, yeah.
But it gets even like wilder.
Yeah.
Burgess says that 2 or 3 of the people in these videos look like they're underage.
Yeah, that adds a whole other dimension of seriousness to an already intense situation.
Right.
And when you add in the power dynamics that come with someone like Diddy, it's just, you know, it's like a recipe for potential abuse of power.
Totally. And like, think about it. Someone like Diddy, right? He has a massive amount of influence.
He's not just a celebrity.
Yeah.
He's like a kingmaker.
Exactly. He's a kingmaker.
Yeah.
And this news report even mentions that there are some lawsuits that allege that Combs used that influence, right, to pressure young people, like promising them careers in exchange for sexual favors.
Yeah, it's messed up.
It's so messed up.
It's a classic example of what, we call grooming.
Right.
Where someone with power, manipulates someone less powerful, often someone young and aspiring, to do things they wouldn't normally do.
Right, and they make them feel like they owe them something.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and this is where it gets really tricky because why wouldn't someone just come forward right away?
Right.
We're talking about the entertainment industry.
I know.
Image is everything.
It is.
What if speaking out ruins your career?
Yeah.
Like before it even begins.
Yeah, and think about it. Like sexual abuse, especially with someone as powerful as Diddy, can leave really deep psychological scars.
Oh, absolutely.
And victims often struggle with shame and fear and guilt.
Right.
They might even blame themselves.
Right. So you're saying they might not say anything because they're afraid of being judged.
Yes. Or not believed.
Or not believed.
Or retaliated against.
Right. What if they speak up and then face a smear campaign? Or get blacklisted.
Or lose opportunities.
Right.
It's a lot to risk.
It's a huge risk. It's a catch-22. Right?
It is.
They're afraid to speak up because of what might happen.
Yeah.
But staying silent can be just as damaging.
Exactly.
In the long run.
In the long run, yeah.
Now, it's important to note that Combs has denied all of this.
Right.
And his lawyers are adamant, like, he's innocent. But the fact that Burgess claims Kim Porter, Diddy's ex, gave him these tapes adds another layer of complexity here.
It does.
But Porter's kids are pushing back hard.
Totally.
Saying their mom would never do something like that.
Yeah.
They're calling Burgess a liar.
It just adds like another layer of uncertainty to this whole situation.
What a giant puzzle, and we're missing so many pieces.
I know.
But you know what I find interesting?
What's that?
And maybe even hopeful in this case, is that some of the alleged victims are men.
Right.
It's not just women coming forward.
Yeah. And that's a significant shift we're seeing
in
cases like this.
Totally.
For a long time, men have been conditioned to stay silent about these experiences.
Like it's not something...
It's just not something they're supposed to talk about.
Exactly. It's like there's the stigma that men can't be victims of this type of abuse.
Right. But thankfully, that's starting to change.
I think so too.
The hashtag #MeToo movement has really helped open up this conversation.
For sure.
And show that anyone, regardless of gender, can be a victim.
Absolutely.
And it's about time.
It's about time.
And it's so important that we, as a society, create an environment where all victims feel safe and supported.
Right.
To come forward.
Yes, we need to listen to them.
Listen to them.
Believe them.
Believe them.
And help them get the justice they deserve.
Absolutely.
And I think that leads us to a bigger question here.
What's that?
What will it take for a culture of silence and complicity to truly change? Not just with this case, right?
Yeah.
But within the entertainment industry as a whole.
It's the question we all need to be asking.
Is real change even possible?
And, there's no easy answer.
It's like this massive tangled knot.
It is.
And it's going to take so much to untangle it.
It's going to take a multi-pronged approach.
Yeah.
Like changing laws.
Right.
Shifting social norms, holding people accountable.
Right.
Institutions accountable.
Yeah.
It's about creating a culture where victims aren't afraid to speak up.
Right.
Where there are clear pathways to justice.
Yeah.
And where powerful figures are responsible for their actions.
Okay, that sounds like a tall order.
It is. But it's a necessary one.
It is. We have to start somewhere.
We do.
And I think we've covered a lot of ground here, right? We've talked about the shocking allegations, those broader issues of power, trauma, the need for change. But before we get too far ahead, let's take a closer look at what these accusations mean for the case and for Diddy's defense.
Okay, let's unpack that.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get into the specifics of these accusations, right?
Right.
Because Burgess isn't just making, like, these vague claims.
Right.
He's alleging he has, like, concrete evidence.
Yeah.
He keeps mentioning these sex tapes.
And he claims he got them from Kim Porter.
Right.
Which I just don't understand. Like, why would she give those to him?
I know. It's one of the big questions surrounding this whole case.
Right.
Like, he hasn't given a lot of detail.
Right.
About his relationship with Porter.
Yeah.
Or why she would give him such sensitive material.
And Porter's children are saying she never gave him any tapes, and she didn't even write a memoir.
Yeah.
Which is what Burgess is claiming.
Exactly. They're saying it's a total fabrication.
Right. So,
which just adds like another layer of uncertainty to this whole thing.
It's like a giant puzzle and we're missing pieces.
Exactly. Yeah. But even with the missing pieces, we can still try to understand the potential legal strategies at play here.
Okay.
So for Combs' defense team, discrediting Burgess is probably like priority number one.
Gotcha.
They'll want to raise doubts about his credibility, his motives, the authenticity of the tapes.
Right. So if they can prove that Burgess is lying or that he's somehow like manipulating the evidence, that would really weaken the prosecution's case.
It could significantly weaken it.
Yeah.
They might also try to argue that even if the tapes are real, they don't necessarily prove any wrongdoing on Combs' part. They could say that the encounters were consensual or that Combs didn't know how old the victims were.
I mean, I don't know how those arguments would hold up.
Right.
Given everything,
You're right. It would be a tough sell.
Yeah.
But it's a strategy we've seen before in these types of cases.
Right. So what about the prosecution then?
Right.
What do they need to do?
So to build a strong case, they need to like corroborate Burgess's claims. Find independent evidence. That supports his story.
So it's not enough for Burgess to just say, I have these tapes.
It's not enough. He needs to back it up with something more substantial. They'll also need to show that Combs's actions, meet the legal definition of the crimes he's being accused of.
Okay, so that means proving that he used
coercion, manipulation, his position of power, to exploit these victims.
And this is where that grooming concept comes in.
Exactly. The prosecution might argue that Combs engaged in a pattern of behavior that was designed to gain trust. Make them more vulnerable to manipulation. And abuse.
I bet the prosecution will also want to focus on the impact of the alleged abuse. Yes. They'll probably bring in experts to talk about the psychological effects of the trauma.
Absolutely. And they'll want to paint a clear picture for the jury about the lasting harm that these actions have caused.
And this where like understanding trauma is so crucial.
Yes, because trauma isn't always straightforward.
No.
It can manifest in so many different ways.
Absolutely.
Some victims might experience immediate reactions like anxiety, depression, PTSD.
And others might suppress it for years.
For years, even decades. Before the full impact hits them.
And especially in the entertainment industry.
Oh, absolutely.
Imagine being a young artist. And trying to deal with this trauma.
I know.
While trying to like navigate this cutthroat world.
It's a recipe for disaster.
The
industry often demands silence. And compliance.
Which makes it so hard to come forward.
It's so difficult.
It's like they're trapped.
They are.
In a system that's meant to protect the powerful. And silence the vulnerable.
And that's why this case is so important. It has the potential to expose these problems. And force the industry to confront itself. And its own complicity in this culture of abuse.
But even if Combs is found guilty. Will that really create change?
That's the million-dollar question. One verdict won't magically fix everything. But it could be a catalyst for a broader conversation about accountability and transparency and protecting people within the entertainment industry.
We've seen that with other high-profile cases, It's like a domino effect.
It is.
One person speaks out, then another, then another.
Exactly.
And then suddenly, like, there's this wave of change.
It's about shifting the power. Giving a voice to the silenced. And creating a culture where abusers are held responsible.
And that change needs to come from all levels. Individual actions, institutional reforms, legal and societal shifts.
Absolutely.
You mentioned #MeToo earlier. Do you think this case could have a similar impact?
It's possible. The #MeToo movement showed us the power of collective action. And believing survivors. And it created a space for people to share their stories. Find support. Demand change.
In this case, it's high profile. The allegations are serious.
I know.
I think it has the potential
Yeah.
to kind of reignite that conversation
It does.
and push it even further.
It could force us
Yeah,
to confront uncomfortable truths about the entertainment industry
absolutely.
and how power can be abused.
Hopefully it'll inspire more people to come forward.
I hope so too.
Oh, 'cause it's silence.
It takes so much courage to speak out against abuse.
Especially when it's someone so powerful.
Especially
But the more people who come forward, the more we chip away at that wall of silence.
exactly.
And create a culture where this behavior just won't be tolerated.
It won't be tolerated.
So that's the goal, right?
It's the goal.
Create a world where everyone feels safe, respected,
Safe, respected.
empowered to speak their truth.
Absolutely. And I think that's a good place to pause for a sec.
Okay.
We've talked about the legal complexities, the strategies of both sides,
Yeah.
and the implications for the industry.
Yeah. And the issue of trauma
Oh, yes.
and how it can impact victims.
In those invisible ways.
But before we wrap up,
Yeah.
I think it's important to explore what we can do,
Yes.
as individuals, as a society,
Yeah.
to create a more supportive environment.
Yes. Let's shift gears.
Yeah.
And talk about healing and
Yeah.
change.
Okay, so we've talked about the legal side, the power dynamics, the trauma, but what can we actually do
Yeah.
to make things better?
Right.
It feels kind of overwhelming.
I know.
How do we even start?
It's a big question.
Yeah.
But you're right.
Yeah.
We can't let the problem just paralyze us.
Yeah.
Change starts with each of us.
So what can I do
Yeah.
as just one person to actually make a difference in this?
Well, first,
Yeah.
educate yourself.
Okay.
Learn about the different forms of abuse,
Okay.
the signs,
Uh-huh.
the resources that are available.
Yeah.
The more you know, the better equipped you'll be
Okay.
to support survivors
Okay.
and to challenge these harmful behaviors.
Right. Knowledge is power.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And don't underestimate the power of conversation.
Oh, okay.
Talk to your friends and family, colleagues about consent, respect,
Yeah.
healthy relationships.
That might be uncomfortable.
They can be uncomfortable at first,
Yeah.
but they're so crucial
Right.
for changing those societal norms
Yeah, sure.
and creating that culture of accountability.
It's like planting seeds.
It is.
Right. The more we talk about it, the more awareness we raise.
Exactly.
Okay.
You can also use your voice to advocate for change.
Okay.
Support organizations that are doing this work. Speak out against injustice.
Yeah.
Demand accountability from powerful people.
So even small actions
Yes.
can make a difference when we all do them together.
They can. They absolutely can.
Full.
And here's something super practical.
Okay.
Believe survivors.
Oh, yeah.
When someone shares their story,
Yeah.
listen with empathy,
Right.
without judgment.
Yeah.
Your belief can be so validating
Wow.
and empowering
Okay.
for a survivor.
It is simple but powerful. Just believing someone
It is.
can make a world of difference.
It really can.
Wow.
And if you can support survivors by connecting them with resources,
Okay.
a therapist, a support group, a legal advocate,
So creating a safety net.
yes,
Yeah.
a network of support
Okay.
for those who need it most.
Got it. So this isn't just about us though, right?
No, we also need that systemic change.
So what does that look like?
It means pushing for policies that protect people,
Okay.
promote accountability,
Yeah.
advocating for stronger laws against abuse,
Right.
better training for professionals, more resources for those organizations dedicated to this work.
And holding the industry accountable too, right?
Absolutely.
For creating a culture where this can happen.
We need real consequences for abusers,
Yeah.
regardless of their status or their influence.
It can't just be swept under the rug anymore.
No more sweeping it under the rug.
No more protecting powerful people
No.
at the expense of the vulnerable.
We